You can make kids feel special without making them feel entitled. And there's a balance, and I feel like, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, we're all unique, and that's special. Like, everyone is special. Like, and so you should appreciate yourself and appreciate, like, your qualities and, like, know who you are and be proud and have confidence. Like, that's how I interpret that.
I'm Andre, and this is the Speak Your Life podcast, where we talk about everything as it relates to education, careers, values, mentors, and anything to do with purpose. We do this one impactful conversation at a time, whether a solo dolo with yours truly or our amazing guests to share stories, industry insights, encouraging words, and calls to action that can help you get closer to your why. Become a part of the Speak Your Life community by subscribing today to the podcast and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. Today's special guest is from Sweet Home, Alabama. Is a University of Pennsylvania graduate where she obtained a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in secondary education. She now resides in Brooklyn, New York, and is now the assistant principal for Urban Dove Team Charter School, where she makes an impact on students every single day. Please welcome my friend, Jasmine Hoskins.
Yay, thank you. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Good. I was cold out there. It's snowing outside. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm from Georgia. I ain't used to this.
I know. I was thinking the same thing earlier. Like, I'm moving back.
Yeah. I'm just sipping this lovely tea that you just made, and I'm just like,
welcome to my home.
It's good stuff. But all right. So let me hear let's everybody hear your 5-minute life story. Just
okay.
Try to compress that into like 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I was born in Birmingham in 1989 to two parents.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the church. I grew up in a pretty good public school.
Mm-hmm.
I have, lots of family in the South, in Birmingham and Mississippi. So that's how I was raised. We traveled a lot. Yeah. I knew I wanted to leave the state for college, so I applied to a lot of places and ended up getting into Penn. Didn't know much about it. Just knew that, I'd gotten straight A's in Birmingham. So I was like, I'm going to go try this thing.
Yeah.
And then, I had a great time in undergrad there. Learned a lot. Definitely broadened a lot of horizons. I did an after-school program starting my freshman year in Philly, and it was really, I guess I had done like summer camps and things like that before in terms of working as a teenager, but just seeing what the school system was like for kids in West Philly and just knowing how dramatically different it was in my own upbringing, I'm like, okay, like, there are real civil rights issues in this country that need to be dealt with. Yeah. And so I was kind of convicted, like, from 18, like, whatever I do, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be in education. This is like this is a cause for me. Yeah. So at that point, I was still a psych major. I started looking into school psychology. I kept working in the program. And by the end, by my senior year, sort of came to the point that, like, I guess from the experiences that I had, and a lot of people were going into TFA, it felt like, if I want to get into education, the best thing for me to do is to start as a teacher and learn more about the system and sort of go from there. So I, entered the classroom with a plan to, like, learn, but then see what my next move was as I was doing that. Yeah. So I applied and received the Lenore Annenberg Teaching Fellowship, which is one of the Woodrow Wilson Fellowships. A lot of people know the Rockefeller, which is specifically for minorities. Okay. But the Lenore Annenberg was just like a smaller one, a little niche one. Yeah. No longer exists. But anyways, so I had that fellowship. I was able to stay at Penn for a year and get my master's there. I did my student teaching in West Philly at University City High School. And that's where I realized that I really enjoyed working with high schoolers, but I also sort of experienced what it was like to be in a school that was really taken over, and not that the teachers weren't really allowed to make their own decisions. And so once I got into teaching, I knew I wanted to be in a school where I would have that kind of liberty to be more of a teacher researcher and a teacher activist, and actually there for my thinking, and not just anyone's like teacher robot, like I'm too well educated to be your robot, please let me think. So that's how I ended up in New York, to find a school like that. And so I worked at a middle school, and then I transferred to my current school. Our school is very innovative. We work with some of the neediest students in the city, really. They're transfer school students, so they've experienced failure in their freshman or sophomore year of high school for a variety of reasons. Like, I could go on and on naming them. We really can't put our students into a box. And so figuring out solutions that work for our very diverse student group requires us to have like very innovative structures, very innovative curriculum. We really think outside of the box with a lot of things, and that just really plays well to my strengths, makes me feel like I'm making an impact. I tell people all the time, like, the things that are happening not just in my school but in transfer schools, like if we're making it work for our students, imagine using these same resources and using these ideas for students who are less disenfranchised and have more resources. So I also feel like it's kind of like how Angela did. I don't know how long I've gone at this point, but
keep going. You're doing good.
I recently read this book by Angela Davis, and now I'm blanking on the title, but it's one of her most recent books, and it's on the intersection. It's basically on intersectionality, and she talks a lot about Ferguson, and she talks a lot about Israel, and how like the issues are very similar, and how she has some really, really eloquent passages on how it's very important that we don't just limit our justice to ourselves because of basically that philosophy that if anyone is experiencing injustice, then all of us are, because we're living under a framework that injustices people. And so it may not be you this time, but just like watch out next week. Wow. So anyways, I say all that to say transfer schools are doing great work, and it's really exciting to work in them. I feel excited about our work. It is, I still work in a school, so it's very exhausting, but I feel super fulfilled in that work, and I'm looking forward to sort of what comes next for our school, what comes next for me professionally, all that.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's man, that's awesome. Like everything that you tied in together, and so I was wondering, we talked. You talked earlier about like going from Alabama to UPenn and stuff like that. But what made you leave like the comforts of like Southern living to just go up north and just like have a new life, just starting out in college? What made you do that? I
mean, I wasn't necessarily seeking the north. Okay. I just like was seeking something different. I got to travel a good amount as a child, but also the way my experience of Southern culture is very conformist, in ways that are sometimes really beautiful, like with community and traditions and stuff like that. But it definitely, there's an encouragement of like similar thinking from my experience. And I don't know, something about it. I wanted to try something different and see what that was like. So I'll probably, still go back south at some point, but it's been nice to get out. I started in Philly, which was its own very own mesh of cultures, a beautiful experience. I learned a lot. I became a Philly John, and then I was ready to come.
Had those Philly cheesesteaks.
Ready to come to New York, where you can truly, my thing was I can wear whatever I want and no one will even look at me.
Yeah, that's so true.
So yeah, it's been nice transitioning just to experience the liberty and freedom of it all. But definitely the West Coast has always drawn me. I like cultures, I like people, so I don't like this weather, so they can keep that.
Woo! That's one thing I'm getting used to, man. I'm still getting used to, even being up here since last year, so I definitely can attest to that. I mean, being a Southerner myself, so. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense as far as what you were talking about, the different sets of frames of thinking, that you kind of mentioned earlier about the South and the North, and just in anywhere outside the South, this is very different. And so there's a diversity of education, there's a diversity of thought process, there's a diversity of ways of living that you may not see as much in the South. I see it's growing in big cities like Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, the big cities, but as far as like the other places that are still like, it's very kind of set in certain ways, and it may be a while until something changes. So that makes a lot of sense, and I can understand as a millennial myself, like why you would want something different, because life's too short. We're in our 20s, 30s, and it's just like when you're in that time of your life, especially when you're like, man, 18 to 29, that's like the exploration period of life. You're just what major do I choose? Like, who do I date? Like, where do I travel? Like, all those things are like, there's so many people wondering, what else is out there? And so that's why people are taking gap years. That's where people are just, doing this or that. And so like, that's awesome how you were able to like just go up there and just like do it and not have hesitation about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, with that, I have to shout out to my parents. Like my dad told me like, whatever you want, do whatever you want. And so that was like, not everyone has that liberty. So. And
that support system.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. It's funny that you say as a millennial, because it makes me think like, we grew up on the internet, like we saw what everyone else was doing, not to the extremes that, the current teenagers and kids. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation, another whole podcast episode. This is part 1, guys, of part 2, a mini series. But that's true for there. But yeah, it was a different time. It was the beginning of the internet, the information experience, and the phenomena, I guess you could say. But yeah, so that's so transitioning from college, and what was that transition like? Just coming up to a new experience, a new culture up here, and just
from college.
Oh, I'm sorry, from coming from the South and coming up here, just in general, from like college and beyond college. How was that transition?
Yeah, well, one of the things that struck me is just like how much I miss trees. I know that's like not the deepest thing, but there's something very grounding about nature. Yeah. And just sort of always being in the hustle and bustle is very much a shift in like, I don't know, I feel like I breathe differently up here. Yeah. But like I think that there are maybe stereotypes about like people here not being as like warm or as friendly or whatever, but I just really disagree. Like I feel like I make genuine connections a lot more easily up here. I don't know what it is. I think people are a lot more open and like, I don't know. Let me stop. I don't want to start like generalizing and making people look bad. But my experience is that I've met a lot of genuine, warm, open people, and it's probably because I'm older and talking to people who know who they are instead of in the South when I was a teenager. But yeah, I've had a really positive experiences in terms of building relationships. I haven't been in a city where I've had family since I was 18 really. Okay. And so I've had a lot of people like adopt me. Like it's been I've experienced a lot of warmth. I would definitely say, like, in terms of some of the social factors, one of the things, oh my goodness, I feel like we're getting like deep into sociology. Okay, so,
that's totally fine.
Yeah. So
because you study psychology, so they kind of tie in a little bit together.
Yeah. So, I'll just say, just thinking of like the racial experiences in the South versus the North.
What do you mean specifically?
I felt, I guess, with my circumstance and my upbringing, a lot more comfortable interacting with white people in the South. Like, I think white people in the South are a lot more comfortable with Black people as a whole. Just like, pick your average white person. Do they normally talk to Black people? Yes. Pick your average white person up here. Do they normally talk to Black people? It's there. I see segregation in different ways here. A lot more social segregation, and also I have to say that I went to the second most diverse high school in Birmingham, so my experience was definitely a tailored experience. But it was still a stark contrast. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you're touching on a lot of things right there, and but yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think I think that people. The thing that I've heard, I'll say this, like, the thing that I've heard is that though there's a lot of, like, statistical diversity here in New York, there's a lot of, like, as far as, like, social and, like you were talking about, like, the cultural part, it's a lot of separation. You have, you have certain parts, Flatbush, you got, like, that's the Caribbean side, or you got Harlem, that's the black people side, that's, Manhattan is, like, predominantly white, upper middle class and, beyond, and, you have Bronx, there's a lot of Dominicans, there's people from all over, and there's different sections, there's, Islamic section, Arab sections, and there's different little pockets of, different cultures, and that's cool, and there's Jewish sections, and that's awesome that, you have such an array of different kinds of communities, but at the same time, like, as far as, like, the interaction, the crossing over, it's something that I don't really see as much, people, they come from different places, and then they go to work together, they're on the same train together, but they're so separated, whether they got, because, like, they just don't know how to interact, or I don't know what it is,
and
to be honest. And you don't
want to interact with anyone on the train, so
Get your headphones on, reading a book, like, the next person is probably crazy, I don't know, they get probably schizophrenia, I don't know, but that's, I don't know what that stems from, but that's something that's an observation I've also noticed in my own set of experiences here, so yeah, that makes sense.
I'm glad to hear it. Glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah. And so going back to the UPenn experience, did you go into the university thinking that you were going to into education, or did you have, like, a different plan? Or
I'm a person who, like, always has a plan until now. That's different. But yeah, so I was just, like, pretty certain that I was going to major in psychology, minor in nutrition, and become an eating disorder specialist. Like, that was my plan. I had it all figured out. Yeah. And then I hit a hitch in the plan quickly, because the nutrition class was in the nursing program, which is, like, the #1 nursing program in the country, so there was no way that I was getting a class in there.
Oh man.
So I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna ever become a nutrition minor. I would have to, like, apply into nursing to become a minor.
Oh, so you're smart. You got to UPenn, so
I'm like, okay, the psych will do. And then I got caught up in education, so it was all fine.
Yeah, and you found what worked for you. And, what was it specifically, like why education? Like, what was it that really kind of drew you in out of all the other things that you could have pursued?
It's so funny. It is the kids. Like, that sounds like a, I don't know, stereotype. Yeah, cliche. But it's a cliche for a good reason. Like, we get a lot of people coming to our school, like, asking us a lot, and, like, a lot of questions about our model, and, we have to do things for the state and whatnot. But really, so many questions come down to the kids, and it's because, like, when you are actually site-based, that human connection, that human interaction is what's going on all day, and so it always comes down to that. Like, when I think about when I first got into education, that after-school program in West Philly, like, the first thing that I think of is when I would walk into the auditorium, and I worked with, like, the babies at the time, like kindergarten, third grade. You walk into the auditorium and they just start, like, running towards you with open arms, like,
Jasmine,
Auntie Jasmine, that's what we called. We're aunts and uncles in our program.
That's awesome.
Shout out to Freedom Schools. CSSP.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so So the kids,
It's
the kids, like, One of the things that I really struggled with when I was in high school is figuring out what was the thing that I was really good at. And so I talked to my physics teacher, and I was like I'm fine in physics, I'm fine in English, I get my grades or whatever, but I'm not the best in the class at anything. And he's like, well, your strength is really the people, your interactions with people, you need to just do something people-centered, and you're pretty good at everything, so you'll figure it out. And so that, I think being site-based is very important to me, because that interaction with who, you go and you do the research, and you go and you write the thing or whatever, but it's the interaction that fuels you. So thank you for that. I need to keep that in mind.
That's right. I definitely agree with that. You are very people-centric, and you have this energy that's very inviting and warm, and maybe it has something to do with the Southern hospitality, but it's I think that's just you also. That's just Jasmine. And so that's, and I can see what he was saying, that the guy you mentioned. I agree with that, because you need people like that are and they're influencing the next generation, because the last thing that I want is for teachers who are not passionate about kids or people, and they're just collecting a check, or I don't know, this is just something that they were supposed to do, quote unquote, I don't know, and they are basically kids are sponges, and because kids are sponges, and if you are not passionate, you're not going to love them, you're not going to cherish them and respect them in a way that that they need to have that kind of acceptance to be able to grow properly, because there's so many kids out there that maybe don't have the best home life, or they they have a lot of struggles, whether it's physical health, mental health, whatever. And so sometimes I hear different stories, and I know growing up myself, I didn't have major struggles, but just those teachers made a difference. I still remember to this day, one teacher I had in particular, my 5th grade teacher, Miss Rivard, and I don't know where she is right now, but shout out to Miss Rivard from North Fayette Elementary. And she just, I don't know, she made me feel special, even though there's so many kids in the class. She made everybody feel really special. She made them feel like they matter, that they were gonna do something in life. And because the last thing you want is for somebody who's I don't know, either putting kids down, or just hey, you're not you're not meant for this, or you're not, just telling them what they're not, or what, I don't know, what box they're supposed to be in, because you came from this neighborhood, so therefore you can only do become a rapper, you can only become an athlete, nothing beyond that. So teachers like her and you, and people who are influencing the educational realm are really vital assets for just the kids, the next generation. Because I mean, I sometimes I even just hate to use that word kids, because people look at they look at them as little adult, little people, and they're the next generation. If you really think about it, that's powerful, because if you're just there's just little kids, you don't show them respect, you don't really just pat them on the head and just whatever, but they are soaking up all this, they are, and whatever you pour into them, they're gonna come back with double whatever that is. Exactly. So if you pour into them with love, you're gonna, it's gonna be a generation full of love, respect, and Now, we don't believe in, I'm not here to advocate participation trophies or anything like that, but at the same time, I feel
that's not love.
No.
Love is honest.
Because that's what other generations describe our generation as, they're the participation trophy generation that, I feel I remember reading Jefferson Bethke's book, To Hell with the Hustle, and he was, he talked about Mr. Rogers, and how he received a lot of flack from just making kids feel like they're special, our generation, because we were like that, that 90s, and just, I think that you can make kids feel special without making them feel entitled, and there's a balance, and I feel I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. We're all unique, and that's special. Everyone is special. And so you should appreciate yourself and appreciate like your qualities and like know who you are and be proud and have confidence. Like that's how I interpret that, not like you're the one. You will conquer. Like that's not.
You might, but I mean,
if that's your talent, but you may
but you
also
might
cook.
and that's okay. And that is okay. The BBC reports a U.S. workers' online study said that nearly 70% agree public speaking skills are critical for success at work. Maybe you are a student looking to become a prime candidate for that internship, or might I say full-time position, or maybe you have already been in the job market for some time now and you just want to stand out amongst your coworkers looking to get that raise you feel like you've been passed up for too long now. Go to speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. That's speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. Again, that's speakyourlife.com/private-lessons to become a better communicator tomorrow by signing up today. Just going back to like how you pour into the kids, that is so awesome. Like that's something that you, I don't know, that's a part of who you are.
Yeah, I want to take the opportunity to shout out teachers like you are. Like, I don't know, I feel like I hear a lot out there about like everything that teachers aren't doing, and like there are so many who are doing such amazing work. There's no one, and our staff is big. We have like 75 people on staff. There's no one in our building who's not there for the kids. And I'm not saying that our staff is perfect. We all, including myself, have like lots of areas of growth. But one of the things like we develop ourselves. So right now, our whole staff professional development is on emotional intelligence. And one of the things that's coming out in like our conversations is just how much our own experiences and our own upbringing, how that becomes our default when it comes to like a lot of interactions. Because you know, like when you're face to face with kids, like you don't get to like plan and think about like your response to everything. Like you have to have the right mentality and go in like prepared, and then just be like ready. You're making, I think someone said, like more split-second decisions than a brain surgeon. Like you're just like constantly all that. And you talk about, you know, a lot of trauma that kids are experiencing, a lot of like just like unmet needs. There's a lot that goes into it, and there are a lot of teachers and a lot of other staff members, youth developers working super, super hard. So I know, you know, the stereotypes exist for a reason. I know there might be some people out there collecting checks and whatnot, but they're not in my school, so shout out to UD. and I kind of come from a background where like my mom was a teacher, and I have cousins and, you know, different family members who are in the educational field. So I definitely have a great appreciation for, you know, the work that you guys do, and it's definitely underappreciated here in the States. And when I go to, you know, other places like China or Dubai, they are paying like American teachers to come over and just, I don't know, they're paying them like, you know, double the amount that they're paying, you know, the kid, you know, the teachers here. Excuse me. And it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting how that works, because everybody seems to put such high value on teachers and education than we do in America, at least at the lower levels. Now, you know, secondary education, that's a different, you know, higher education, that's a different story. But just like at the beginning, I don't think we pour in as much as far as like giving teachers the proper resources or the compensations that they deserve. So it's like just way too political here. So that's we're not gonna get into all that, but I just from being the son of a teacher, I can at least understand a little bit. So but you transitioned from being a teacher to now the assistant principal. Like, what was your mindset and all that? Like how did that happen? Like, cause that's a very young age to be a assistant principal. I was very fortunate. It was where opportunity met preparation. I was the department head for the social studies department the year that we started doing visits to a school called Bronx Arena, that has this like very open model where students work in arenas for 4 hours. Like they have laptops where they can access all their curricula, and they just kind of like flow through at their own pace. They make their own choices, and the teachers come in and do mini lessons and like check-ins, and it's very fluid and beautiful.
That's good.
And so we wanted to take aspects of it and put it into our more traditional system. So I got to play around with that in my classroom, and they liked how things turned out. So they made me the instructional coach next year, so that we could start making that transition across the school.
Okay.
So now this is our 4th year in the model. We started another school in the Bronx last year. It's now in its 2nd year. And so the woman who was formerly in my position became the school leader there. And so I applied for her job and got it.
Nice. Congrats. And you've been in this position for what, about a year?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Okay.
It was a mid-year transition.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's... Man, that's such a great accomplishment. That's, man, I'm still, like, I'm happy for you. Like, that's really cool. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, man, she's got to be on my podcast. So,
this is fun.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, what do you feel like now that you're in this new position, but we both know that, you know, position is not your purpose. Position is the lens or the medium which your purpose is filtered through. So what do you feel like your purpose or your why is in life?
Yeah, that has transitioned for me in like the past year, just from like new really good teaching. I go to King Church of Christ in Brooklyn.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out Brother Wilson. He had a great sermon at some point in the past year. I can't remember when. And he said a thing about how like we're gifted for ministry, and we use those gifts. Like, I don't know, my interpretation of it, I don't remember if this is exactly what he said, but what the conclusion that I drew was that the gifts that I use in my professional life, like those are purposeful and God's work, you know, like I believe that. But I also believe that like I'm developing a skill set in that arena so that I can use that skill set for like the ministry, for the work of God, like to make that a priority. So I try to be as involved as possible. Definitely doing a lot more work for UD than I am for ministry in hours. But we talked earlier about like how I feel like people is like, you know, my giftedness, and like just sort of like being well-rounded and being able to like, I don't know, be hospitable, like it's hospitality, like be what you need me to be. Like I can I want to communicate, I want to keep it light and positive, I want to be diplomatic, I want to show love, I want to like do things for you. Like that stuff makes me feel good, and I like that it makes other people feel good, so it's just like a mutually gratifying situation. So doing that like with our singles ministry, you know, making sure that we're fellowshipping together socially just to get to know each other and be able to like really have deep connections with people who have the same beliefs that we have, making sure that we're fellowshipping together spiritually in terms of like you know, having classes where we talk about big topics, or have speakers come speak on different things that are relevant to professionals, singles, not just because everything is not about like love and whatnot, but definitely about personal development. A lot of what you do, like the work that you do, clearly there's some shared purpose in there.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that is what I feel drawn to as my purpose. Like however I can use my gifts to bring people closer to God, to create spaces, to develop myself spiritually, to be able to like uplift a community. The activism and social justice portion of the ministry is something I'm really looking forward to stepping up starting in January. So yeah.
That's awesome. And how do you feel like you talk about involving yourself in ministry and using your gifts for God, and just you talk about your faith and how that's a big aspect of your life, and I can say it is for me as well. How do you use that in a way and navigate it as you work every day, and you're just out there in a space that you can't necessarily like, hey, let's pray together, hey, let's read a Bible scripture together. Like, how do you navigate using your purpose and sharing that with other people who you can't necessarily do those same exact things with? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, you have some casual parts of your interactions with people, so people know. They ask me what I'm doing on the weekend. Oh, my church just had a turkey giveaway. Like, we're giving away 1,400 turkeys tomorrow. What are you doing?
Yeah, I remember that. It was cold that day. Oh my gosh.
So like, people know that I'm a Christian. They know that I'm super involved in work if they're asking me what I'm up to.
Yeah.
And so since I have that label, I try to be about that life. Mm-hmm. So
and just sometimes I heard that sometimes your life is like the 67th book of the Bible, that people don't read the other 66 books, but they see that one book, and your life may be the only book that they read of the Bible. So that's
what a responsibility.
It's such a responsibility, and it's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, like, I feel like we all have that shared responsibility, and I think that's what community is so important, so that you don't have to like bear a burden by yourself, or feel like you're the only one, or feel like oh man, it's hard being a Christian in these streets. And
actually it's really not like that. Like, it's really not a burden at all. It's such a benefit. Like it's like I get to be like pretty stress free. Because I like have trust, and I have a plan, and I'm in my purpose, so like it's supposed to be okay.
That's right. That's right. So I amen to that.
And when like things don't go well, then there's also still someone to believe in. So
that's amazing. Okay, so with just what we talked about earlier, just like purpose and things like that, what would you say like is some practical advice for, like, I don't know, people who are out there that are struggling to find their way, like in different jobs, or just maybe there's the millennial out there, there's many millennials out there that are just like, man, hopping from job to job, whether they work at Starbucks or at a restaurant, or I don't know, and they just want to, as a millennial, what advice would you give to someone else, like practical advice as far as like helping them to get closer to their purpose, or what their why is in life?
I don't know, I would say stay creative, like read and like go outside and attend things, go to talks, talk to people, be social. I've had so many eurekas through like good conversation. So just like keep processing. Creativity helps me process whatever helps you process.
Okay, good answer. And the nature part, like that's so good. There's actually a statistic out there that talks about, I know earlier you talked about like the trees and how you missed that from the South, and I meant to share that earlier, but they talked about how like when you were able to look out your window and see nature, whether it be a lake or whether it's trees, like you actually decrease your stress levels, as opposed to just like looking outside and a bunch of buildings, concrete jungle. Right. So that's important. Like sometimes you can tap into your inner self when you are within nature, whether it's a hike or I don't know, a run through the park, or who knows.
It helps you like keep perspective. You see how like vast nature is, and you're like, okay, okay, I'm just living my life.
That's right. So that's awesome. Creativity, good. That's a good answer. And if I were to ask you, what would you say that your house stands on? Just one thing that your house stands on. Just one value, one foundational piece.
I mean, like, I was laughing earlier because as you, told me about this question and told me not to say love. I was like, actually.
I was like, don't say love, peace, respect, all that typical stuff. But okay, let's hear it.
It really is love.
I want to hear that perspective.
I mean, it's very simple. Like,
okay.
It's very simple. God is love. My foundation's on Him.
Yeah.
Like, what is the action? Like, what do? You love. Like, that's like, you know, whatever. There's a scripture, the greatest commandment. Like, love me, love your neighbors.
Yep.
Like,
that's right. Very
and
simple.
So, you know, love is an action. It's how you treat people. It's how you think about things. It's how you discipline yourself to be like a better person in a community and society. Like, so just like that action, like, and just keeping like a loving mentality, like do things with love, like that's
Good.
Sorry,
good.
it's love. It's love.
Dang it! But we're gonna roll with that. We're gonna roll with that. But all right. So that leads us into our last segment, which is the question of the day, where we just ask a random off the cuff question of the day. And so that one is, what is your spirit animal?
Oh, yeah. I definitely identify with big cats.
Big cats, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lioness or a panther or
something like that.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay. I think when I took it, I think mine was a tiger. Like it's like it is can be ferocious, obviously, when it needs to be. Takes charge, leader. A few other things I can't remember all the details, but and that concludes our episode for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you, Jasmine, for joining us today.
This was great.
Definitely appreciate you and your insight to today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and get your content, and also follow us on Instagram. Again, that's Speaker LYFE, because life without your Y is meaningless. And give us any feedback from today's episode and let us know what you liked, what you think should be on the next episode, or just give us a shout out. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.